He always felt late. Late in life, late in success, late compared to everyone else. Whenever he opened social media, the same feeling returned. Heavy, silent, suffocating. People younger than him were winning. People who started after him were ahead. Some had money, some had recognition, some had clarity. And he had questions. At night, when the world slowed down, his mind became louder. Did I waste my best years? Is there still time for me? What if I try and still fail? These thoughts didn't scream, they whispered. And whispers are more dangerous. He remembered how hopeful he once was, how confident his younger self had been. He had dreams, simple ones, honest ones. Not fame, not luxury, just a life of dignity, a life where he could stand without shame. But life didn't move in straight lines. Responsibilities came early. Mistakes came often. Fear stayed longer than expected. At some point, he stopped trying fully. Not because he didn't care, but because he was tired of disappointment. He told himself he was being realistic, but deep down, he knew it was fear wearing the mask of logic. People around him didn't help. "Ab kya fayda?" someone said. "तुम्हारा टाइम निकल चुका है," another added. "जो करना था पहले करना चाहिए था." Every sentence felt like confirmation of his worst fear, that he was late. One evening, he sat alone, staring at nothing. His phone lay beside him, filled with reminders of where he wasn't in life. He felt embarrassed, not in front of others, but in front of himself. He made wudu without thinking. Prayer had become the only place where he didn't have to pretend. After Salah, he didn't move. He just sat there, hands on his knees, eyes heavy. "Ya Allah," he whispered, "I know I'm not where I should be, but you know how hard it's been. If there's still a path for me, show me." He wasn't asking for success. He was asking for direction. That night, sleep didn't come easily, but something else did: memory. He remembered a man he once met years ago, someone who had started late, very late. At the time, he hadn't understood the significance. Now the memory felt intentional. The man had said something simple. Allah doesn't count how early you start. He counts how sincere you are when you do. The words stayed. The next day, nothing changed. His problems didn't disappear. His age didn't reduce. His past didn't reset. But a decision formed. Small, quiet, almost invisible. He would stop comparing. Not because comparison was wrong, but because it was paralyzing him. Instead, he asked himself one question. If I start today, where could I be in 1 year? The answer scared him because it meant responsibility. Starting meant risking failure again. Starting meant facing regret head-on. Starting meant admitting that excuses had protected him more than truth. But it also meant hope. So he began, carefully. He didn't announce it. He didn't tell people. He didn't even trust himself fully. He just showed up. Some days, motivation was there. Most days, it wasn't. But discipline filled the gap. He studied when his mind said rest. He practiced when progress felt invisible. He learned to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Slowly, he noticed something strange. The weight of being late started to feel lighter. Not because he was catching up, but because he had stopped measuring himself by others' timelines. One night, while reading quietly, he came across a verse he had read many times before, but never heard. Allah burdens not a soul beyond what it can bear. From Surah Al-Baqarah 2:286. For the first time, he understood. Maybe his delay wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the pace Allah chose for him. Maybe what felt like being behind was actually preparation.
Tears came, not from sadness, but relief, because if Allah hadn't given up on him, why had he? He wasn't late to life. He was right on time for sincerity. And this time, he wasn't going to stop.
He stopped chasing speed, not because he became slow, but because he understood something deeper. Rushing doesn't make you early, and patience doesn't make you late. For the first time in years, his focus wasn't on catching up, it was on building correctly. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Progress was quiet, almost invisible. Some days he felt strong. Other days, doubt returned like an old habit. But now, doubt no longer controlled him. When thoughts whispered, "You're still behind," he replied with action. When fear asked, "What if it's too late?" he answered with effort. He learned to measure success differently, not by milestones others celebrated, but by consistency he maintained. One evening, after a long day of work and study, he realized something important. He was no longer ashamed of his pace. He had made peace with it, and that peace gave him strength. Opportunities didn't suddenly appear, but when small chances came, he was ready, not desperate, not impatient, prepared. He noticed that people began trusting him, not because he was impressive, but because he was reliable. Reliability is quiet power. One day, someone younger than him asked for advice. "How did you stop feeling behind?" the young man asked. He smiled. "I stopped racing people who weren't running my race." That sentence stayed with the young man, and it stayed with him too, because it was true. He reflected on his past, the delays, the detours, the pauses. They no longer looked like mistakes, they looked like lessons. Had he succeeded early, he might have become arrogant. Had life been easier, he might have forgotten Allah. Had he not fallen behind, he might never have learned humility. Allah's timing had protected him from himself. Late one night, while praying, he felt something new: gratitude. Not for success, but for the journey. He realized something most people miss. Being late to the world can mean being early to wisdom, and wisdom lasts longer. Years passed, not dramatically, not with headlines, but with stability. He wasn't famous, he wasn't wealthy, but he was fulfilled. He woke up without dread. He worked with intention. He slept without regret. And that, he realized, was success. One afternoon, he met an old friend, someone who had always been ahead, successful early, admired often. They spoke politely, but behind the smiles, he noticed something painful: restlessness, a hunger that success hadn't fed. The friend asked, "Do you ever feel like you're behind?" He paused, then answered honestly, "I used to, until I realized I wasn't late, I was being trained." The friend looked confused, but something shifted, because deep truths don't need applause, they need reflection. That night, as he walked home, the sky was calm, no rush, no pressure. He thought of all the people who had quit because they felt late, and he wanted them to know one thing: time doesn't disqualify you. Giving up does. He remembered the verse that had become his anchor: وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And whoever relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him. Surah At-Talaq 6:3. Allah didn't need him to be early. He needed him to be sincere. And sincerity had changed everything. The world may celebrate speed, but Allah honors perseverance. He finally understood. You don't lose because you started late. You lose when you stop believing that effort still matters. And as long as you're breathing, it matters.